And I wonder if using the magic of science. Hello, I'm that James guy, and today we're gonna fix the very last thing I need to fix on the V-Strom. I think I've decided, not 100% sure yet, but I think I've decided that I'm gonna sell it. We're moving into a much smaller place temporarily till our new place is ready, and I just want to get rid of it. New place is way closer to the mountains. Maybe I'm gonna get more of a dirt bike than this, but I've had this for maybe 3 or 4 years, probably the longest I've ever had a motorcycle in my life. It's been wonderful, but the old V-Strom's got to go. But before I put it up for sale, fork seals. You can see here that the fork seals are, yeah, they started leaking on me. 80,000 miles on this thing. I think it's just time. I initially fixed it by using like hard plastic, really thin plastic, and kind of cleaning the seals out. And it stopped leaking for a while, but today is a good opportunity to get new fork oil in it, change the seals, and then it's good. There's nothing left on this thing, no outstanding maintenance, no nothing. It's ready to go to the next lucky owner. I bought the seal kit like even before I cleaned the seals out with the little thin piece of plastic. You know, people used to use like camera film. You take a little piece of camera film and you just kind of put it in where the seal is. That's a good way to clean them up. I suppose some of you probably don't even know what camera film is. It's this stuff we used to have to put into cameras in order to take pictures. But yeah, let's get going and let's fix it. First thing you're going to want to do is loosen the caps on the top, and before you do that you're going to want to loosen the top triple tree bolts on either side, because these triple tree clamps actually squeeze the thread. So if you try to loosen this off now, you could damage the threads because they're actually being clamped by the triple tree. So you loosen those off. The bottom triple tree will still keep the fork from turning, but you got to loosen the top one off, and then the cap should come off pretty easy. You just want to crack them loose for now. It's gonna be really hard to do that off the bike, and then we'll just start taking the front wheel off and everything apart and support the front of the bike, and we'll pull these things out of here. Okay, that's loose now. Actually was not tight at all. This is the crazy thing. There you go, that one's loose as well. Not very tight. Interesting. So to support the front of the bike, to lift it up, you can use basically anything you want. Even a piece of rope to the ceiling of your garage, or to a tree, or to anything. You're only gonna lift like 150 pounds, maybe 200 pounds here. It's not very much. I just so happen to have an engine lift. I'm gonna go ahead and use that because it just makes life way easier. And we'll support the front of the bike and whip this whole thing apart. Fork. This wasn't even the bad one. You can just see how much oil's been leaking out of this thing. They're both leaking. 80,000 miles. It's certainly not from doing big wheelies. This V-Strom is not not a wheelie monster like you'd expect. Clean this off real good, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna unwind this cap. Now, preload, remember where you're at, but you want to back this all the way out because you're just going to decrease the amount of spring pressure on here by backing the preload. Preload is the amount of spring pushing the front of the bike up. Wow, this thing was wound right in. Okay, that's all the way out. And then what you're going to want to do is start backing this out, but you don't want to go all the way because there's a big spring behind here. And I apologize that I don't have an actual proper socket. It's at a different shop right now. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, like, as you're loosening this, push down really hard against the spring. And I already can feel that it's actually not much tension. Like, so each time you turn it a little bit, you're pushing down real hard, and And there we go. So see what I did there? And then you just slowly let it off. And that's the top cap for the right side. And this thing right here pushes against the spring. When you adjust your preload, like I was just backing off, this just pushes down more that way into the fork and puts more spring preload on there. So what we're going to want to do now is just slowly drop this tube down. You know what? This oil actually isn't that dirty. The funny thing here. Okay, some sort of a spacer on top of the spring. And then next is the spring. So here, whoa, don't lose any of the stuff, folks. Kind of remember where this all goes. Got oil spilling here and there because this is all submerged. And I'm just going to pour the oil out. It is a little bit nasty, this oil. And we'll just hold that there for a little while and drain it out, you know? Alright, we're zoomed in real nice here. All you gotta do, so this is the dust seal here. This isn't the actual seal. This just keeps dirt and debris and crap from damaging the seal. What if I used a screwdriver? You don't want to scratch the paint, right? Okay, there we go. There you go. And that slides off. You can kind of see the snap ring in there. And all you gotta do is kind of pick that out of there. So, like that. See that? There we go. That's it. That was easy. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the Allen key out the bottom and see what happens then. I think we'll be able to pull this fork right apart and it'll force the seal out when I do so. So now that that's out, I'm gonna leak oil out the bottom. Here comes the seal. So much oil and mess. Okay, kind of got our area cleaned up here. Yikes. I got the screw back in. There's a copper washer in there that actually stayed behind. So I'm not too worried about this thing leaking after. So I'm just going to tighten this screw back up. Not too tight, so just nice and snug. Click, click. Yep, torque wrench, sure, why not? Yep. Next what I'll do is I'll take my fresh seal. You can see that's the bottom side, the more open side. That's the top. And we're just going to slide that down the fork leg. Moink. Kind of like that. Okay, a little bit of a trick for getting this seal in. I figured out that if you just use the old seal, kind of evenly tap, it's actually not a bad way to do it. Okay, snap ring. Okay, snap ring is in. Next, we want to set the level. Put the oil in and set the level. So here's the thing. This fork takes 10 weight oil. According to Suzuki, you can see it's 10 weight oil. But lots of people say that ATF is about 10 weight, and you could probably use ATF. Not going to disagree with that. Apparently this thing takes 524 milliliters per side, and now this is obviously 1,000, so you know, $27 bottle of oil. You're gonna probably have to buy 2 of these. I'm gonna pour a bunch down. According to the manual, you pour a certain amount in and then you measure the distance from the top. And people have special tools for measuring it, but measuring tape, plenty good enough. I'm gonna pour 500 mil in and see what that does. There's like nice graduated lines on the edge here that I can kind of keep checking it. If you change weights, you can change the way the shocks work inside, the dampening and all that kind of stuff. You know, I know there's some guys who'll sell aftermarket springs that are a little stiffer and you can make these things ride a little bit better and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Once you get the oil in, you're gonna wanna work this thing back and forth to kind of get it in all the ports and whatnot. Fork's bottomed out. You can see where the oil level is down in there. You always do it without the spring, and you're going to measure the distance between the oil and the top. So Suzuki says 525 milliliters, which should be 143 millimeters. Now if I push that down there, That's touching right there. 170 actually, so I do need a bit more oil in there. Okay, there we go, 145-ish. You know, is a millimeter or two really gonna make a difference? Kinda doubt it. Also, if you don't quite have enough oil, a little bit of ATF to top it up, automatic transmission fluid, probably not gonna hurt. I'm not like, oh, you gotta use the right oil, you can't use the wrong oil. You know what? Sure, it doesn't matter that much. You know what? That's actually 143. Okay. Now the spring goes in, and on top of the spring is this little spacer thing. And on top of the spacer thing is this spacer thing. Pull this up. Should wipe the junk off here, perhaps. It's probably not good for it. Dirt. A little bit of dirt never hurt anybody. Now we'll just pump this thing like crazy and make sure that our new seal doesn't leak. I say we're good. We are good to go. We'll just put the dust seal on. And we will just repeat for the other side. The triple tree on the bottom, there's actually two bolts, two triple tree clamps. Always torque them like at least 5 times, because when you torque one, the other one's going to loosen. And you're going to torque it, and the other one's going to loosen. You got to torque it a few times just to make sure. I've torqued it back and forth a whole bunch of times here, and now I got a good solid torque, because you don't want one of these coming loose. That's for sure. That's pretty much it. So, fork seals done. You'll notice on that last shock, on the left side shock, when I was punching the seal out, the bushing kind of pushed out and the whole shock kind of came apart, which was fine. I just had to kind of push the bushing back in. But at the end of the day, when you're kind of punching the seal out, just kind of go until the seal's out without pushing the bushing all the way out. Be better, but anyway, not a big deal. So at the end of the day, there's only 2 more things to do here. When you've taken the brake calipers off, you've actually spread the brake pads apart. So what you're going to want to do is kind of like pump the brakes a little bit to kind of get the calipers back up, you know, to the rotor. I've heard stories in the past of guys, you know, take the calipers off, put them back together and go for a ride, and they grab a fistful of brakes and there's nothing. So yeah, pump the brakes up. Before you install the pinch bolt, that's the only thing left here, you're gonna wanna compress the forks all the way and, you know, like pump them back and forth just to make sure that the axle is centered in the forks Maybe not that important, but pretty important. But at the same time, we can now test our fork seals to make sure they're good, make sure they're not leaking. So let's just go ahead and do that. So we'll compress the forks a few times, and then we'll, tighten the pinch bolt. And I think we're done. So if you found this useful or even just mildly entertaining, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.